I'm joined this afternoon by a gentleman called Barry Uglow, an author from Hindhead, who's come into the Guildford studios of BBC Sussex and BBC Surrey to chat to me this afternoon. He's written a book called The Alien Stone, and it's his first book, although he's had an interesting life. And the book has its origins quite a long way back in Barry's own life, even though the story itself begins in the mid-19th century, which is, of course, pre-Barry by some considerable time. So lovely to see you. Thank you so much for coming in, and congratulations on your debut novel. We'll talk about how long the novel has been kind of part of your life in a moment, but let's start by talking about the story itself, which begins in the mid-19th century. So this is just after the American Civil War. Why have you set it then?
Well, when I was stationed in Winnipeg in Canada, I took Spanish courses at the University of Manitoba, and I got very interested in Latin American history. And there was a very major war which went on called the War of the Triple Alliance, which was between Paraguay, which is a very small country, and the three neighboring countries, Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay. And they had a mad dictator called Lopez, who had inherited the presidency from his father, a bit like Saddam Hussein sort of thing. Anyway, I was always interested in the 19th century because as a boy, I remember going into Aldershot to a bookstore where they had a whole 24 volumes of the old Strand magazine bound, and they were 2 shillings each. So I bought them, and I just had to pop in every 2 or 3 days on my bike to take them home because they were quite bulky. And in those books there were the Sherlock Holmes series and all kinds of other stories by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and W. Jacobs and all those great 19th century chaps. And I really sort of fell in love with the 19th century. And combining that with, many years later, my interest in Latin America, I started thinking about this and started writing the story. And
so you're using real facts and historical events, and then you're weaving.
It's set in both in Guatemala, which is Central America, and there were great old civil war going on there. And then Professor Margrave, my protagonist, or as we call the lead character, and us authors, you know.
Yes.
Needed to travel out there to look at this mysterious writing which had been reported to him. So he left his home in Farnham and they went and got into the middle of a nasty action in Guatemala, and they had to flee from there for various reasons, which I won't go into now.
No.
And then they got down into Paraguay, which is much of a frying pan into the fire situation. And there were further adventures there involving the stone. There was a river war going on, of which they got involved. And the professor got a long way to deciphering this alien writing, but they also found there was an alien race of people living in the jungles of South America, on the Paraguay-Argentina border, and also in the Paraguay-Bolivian border, and so on. I won't go into too much detail there, but...
And is the characters, they sound quite vivid. The professor enlists the help of an old friend. He's a bit of a sort of adventurer, and I suppose it sounds to me a little bit like he might be the muscle of the outfit, that kind of thing. But is any of you in any of the characters, do you think?
Well, yeah, I suppose I like to think I'm Professor Margrave.
Yeah.
That's a very flattering thing, isn't it? No, I don't think I'm really... well, maybe I am. I'm certainly interested in that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I certainly haven't gone up in any balloons into the jungles of South America or done anything like that. I haven't fought any battles against the Argentines.
Do you feel at this stage it's a stand? I mean, again, you can only... Barry and I chatting during the Rod Stewart record we played a moment or two ago, and, you know, it's difficult with these sort of things. You don't want to give too much away, but we want to tease people enough to want to go along and read the book. Would you say it's a standalone novel, or is there potential for more from the professor?
Oh, no, I'm working on volume 2.
Oh, you are?
I haven't got a name for it yet, but I've got a drafted out up to about chapter 6.
Yeah.
But this time they're going to the southern United States, again, just after the Civil War. Charleston, they start out and they have to go west. I don't know exactly how that's going to end yet, but I think the Stone's involved, and there's an evil character called Bonpland, a doctor who was actually a sort of leader of this alien race, and something's going to happen somewhere in the old Arizona territory, but I'm not quite sure what yet.
Okay, all right. We'll watch this space for that. We'll watch this space.
Yes.
And we can blame the cold Winnipeg winters on this for this.
Indeed, yes. I attended university courses, and I sort of had my day job as an army officer, and but it passed the time quite agreeably. And of course, now I'm in my advanced years. It's a good thing to do when you're
absolutely
in your 9th decade. So I can recommend it to anybody.
Anyone who's thinking of that. So we probably got as far as sort of mid-70s, and then it was put on the back burner.
Yeah.
And how long, when you retrieved it from said back burner, does it taken to get to this point? How long ago did you start to do it?
Worked on it for about a year.
Okay.
Not assiduously, day by day, like a professional writer, but certainly I got stuck in a little bit.
And has it always been on your mind to complete it, or was it? Did you come across it in a cupboard and think,
yes,
God.
it always was somewhere at the back of my cranium.
Yeah.
To start again,
Yeah. And so, did you go back and rewrite the whole? Did you take it apart and rewrite the whole thing? I'm always fascinated as to how writers set about it, because you say, you didn't do it from 9 to 5 every day.
I had the old typescript, and this, remember back in the 70s, we didn't have computers.
No.
And I used to pay a girl a couple of dollars an hour or something like that to type out my manuscripts. Mm. And I found, rather yellowing copies on the old foolscap pages, and I looked through them, and a lot of it, 80% of it, didn't change much, but obviously I decided to polish it up a bit.
Yeah.
And then I started getting into the sort of mid-chapters and the end chapters and so on.
And then getting to the end, you thought, well, what am I going to do with it now?
Yeah. That's right.
That's a whole new phase, and of course that side of things has changed since you last were in the game, if you like.
Absolutely, yeah. But I mean, there are 4 characters. There's the professor, who's obviously a rather active, athletic academic, aged in his early 50s, and his friend Buchanan, who's an adventurer, an ex-soldier, a rancher in Argentina, and based a bit like Colonel Fred Burnaby. You might have heard about him. Mm-hmm. Not entirely about him, but certainly elements of it. And then there's Archie Scott, who was an engineer officer in the United States Army on the federal side, who was a balloonist. And he came in very handy in Volume 1 and in Volume 2 again. And the 4th character is the old bosun, Jim Cross, who's also a very useful character by rounding up stuff and making contacts with ship's captains and getting ships loaded and unloaded and stuff like that.
Yeah, a bit of a kind of not a gopher character, a fixer, if you like.
Yes, a very brilliant chap in his own way, but a rough diamond.
Yeah.
Because I spent some time with the Navy as well as the Army,
So so in some shape or form, if we, although you're reluctant to, modesty for and everything, if we accept you're the professor, then the other characters you've encountered in some shape or form, probably at some point.
Yeah, certainly the old bosun type. The Archie Scott fellow, I mean, he looks a bit like Edgar Allan Poe. Okay. This book's been illustrated, by the way, by a very brilliant local author called Christopher Cole, who, I beg your pardon, not an author, he's an artist.
Yes.
He teaches live classes and landscape drawing and marine drawing and portraiture and all that sort of thing.
And what's that been like for you as the author, to have somebody else illustrating, and because you bring characters to life and you have a mindset as to what they might be like?
Well, yeah, I made him read the book first, you see, and he got deeply into that.
Good.
And he's done some great illustrations, and maybe if we can do one of these what do they call them? Comic novels, are they?
Yes, like Tintin kind of arrangement.
Yeah,
sort of
we
thing.
could do something like that, I think.
That would work well.
If I could afford to pay him, you know. I don't know whether I could or not. Maybe he'd do it just on the basis of future royalties.
Yes, give them a percentage. That's what you need to do.
That's right, yeah.
Well, Barry, people will be intrigued and want to read this. We need to tell them how they can. It's available as an ebook, is that right?
Yes, I tell you what, if you read that, you'll find that's got all the details.
He's written it down for me. I wish all guests were this organised. The Alien Stone is available on Kindle store through Amazon or the Troubadour website. So if you take a look at www.troubadour.co.uk, then you can find it there. But you need to remember the title of the book, The Alien Stone, and also the author, who is Barry Uglow. Uglow spelt Uglow. And with Volume 2, Barry, when are we going to find out what happens in the Arizona
I think
territory?
you've got about 8 or 9 months to wait for that, because I want to make sure this thing gets published for the autumn. When books start.
Yeah,
selling.
heading up to the Christmas.
And
rush.
I'll probably have a print edition run, perhaps in paperback.
Okay. Well, we'll look out for that.
I don't know if people want to spend, $15.99 for a hardback or not. They might, hopefully.
All right. I hope they do as well. It's been lovely to chat to you. Good luck with Volume 2 and good luck with getting this off the ground. And thank you so much for coming in and chatting to us this afternoon. It's been really lovely to meet you, Barry.
Been a pleasure.